Okay, we're going live. Hey folks, how you doing? Chuck Holton here. I have missed you. We were out for a few days in Cartagena, Colombia. And if you want to know what we were doing down there, you can go watch my channel at the Hot Zone here on YouTube. But it's been a pretty busy few days, and yesterday I took an admin day and kind of relaxed a little bit. Not something I typically do very much, but there's that whole work-life balance thing. And so I pretty much just rested all day yesterday. So I thought about going live last night when we heard that the U.S. Navy had struck the Houthi rebels in Yemen. But I wanted to wait actually until this morning, because if we go live right when it happens, we don't really know what's going on, and pretty much everything we have to say is conjecture. So I figured that by the morning we would have some more information about what's happened. And can we call this an escalation in the conflict? Absolutely. This is definitely an escalation. And this is the first time that the United States and its allies have directly struck one of the combatants in this. Well, I mean, we have struck against targets in Iraq and in Syria, but only when they were striking American targets. The Houthis have been striking, or at least trying to strike, at the Israelis, and have been generally making a nuisance of themselves. And so the U.S. last week, or earlier this week, gave an ultimatum and said that if you continue, we're going to be forced to respond militarily. The Houthis basically said, bring it, and fired a gigantic salvo of rockets and drones and even an anti-ship missile specifically at U.S. naval vessels in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. This wasn't the Houthis lobbing a missile toward Israel and it getting shot down by a U.S. ship along the way. This was a large salvo of rockets and other things, trying specifically to sink an American ship or more. And I want you to just imagine what would have happened had they succeeded, had only one of those missiles gotten through. They managed to shoot them all down, but what would have happened if even one of them had gotten through? We're talking about pretty massive loss of life among U.S. sailors in the region. And that could have easily drawn us into a much bigger conflict with Yemen. I mean, the risks here are actually pretty great. These systems that we have to shoot down missiles and drones and things like that are very good, obviously. They managed to shoot down every single one of them, but they're not perfect. And this is one of those cases where we have to be right every single time, and the enemy only has to be right once. And so the more of these munitions that the Houthis fire at U.S. naval vessels in the region, the more likely it is that one will actually strike. And it wouldn't be the first time. If you remember, the USS Cole got blown up, and I think something like a couple dozen sailors were killed. This is years ago, and they had to bring that ship home riding on another ship so it didn't sink. So this is high stakes tomfoolery that Yemen is engaging in. Now, the United States, for its part, along with its allies, went ahead and warned the Houthis, okay, we're coming. They actually they struck 60 targets in 16 locations last night across Yemen, various different places. They were targeting rocket launch sites, C2 sites. C2 is command and control. So trying to take out their ability to aim at us and to communicate with each other. They were, sites that are munitions depots, storage, things like that. The U.S., for its part, actually used those knock-on munitions before they bombed these buildings. So they dropped a small, basically like a hand grenade, on top of all the targets before they bombed the building, so that people could get out of the buildings before we actually destroyed it. Now, I can see two problems with that. Number one, people in Yemen are not known for having the highest IQs known to man. And if you drop a hand grenade on the target, they may think that that was the bombing. And so they may come running to the location to find out how bad the damage was. Now, I've never been in the proximity of one of these knock-on bombs, so I don't know exactly how loud they are or anything like that, but they've got to be loud enough to wake people up and get them out of there, scare them away. I don't suspect we had too many casualties. The Houthis say that there were 5 dead and 6 wounded from us striking 60 different locations. So that brings up the second problem with this, and that is that the knock-on bombs, dropping those first, give the Houthis the chance to get their most important assets, their people, out of the area, and probably take along anything they can carry or put it someplace that's hardened, like underground. So even though it's spectacular, if you look at the bombing, let's see here if I can go back and find this. Now we got robots. I don't know how we ended up with robots here. I put that up there so we could see the video, but that didn't work too well. I'll go find it. Anyway, the explosions from the actual attacks were pretty spectacular. Yemen. And it says a lot about, here we go. This is the AP putting these out. So you can probably see these explosions. They're pretty spectacular explosions. A large mushroom cloud going off. Well, they look spectacular, but if we warned everybody and everybody got out of the way, then we may have ended up destroying, some warehouses and some munitions and things like that. But not actually damaging things too badly. But one thing I can tell from the press releases that have come out, President Biden came out and gave a speech after this happened, is that this strike was directed as much at Israel as it was at the Houthis in Yemen. What I mean is the United States is trying to tell Israel, now we want you to watch us here. This is how you do operations against the enemy. You let the enemy leave. You knock on and listening to Joe Biden, I mean, it's like listening to a kumquat, but listening to him give this speech, he's obviously trying to school the Israelis on, this is the humane way to do war. And of course, they've been pushing Israel very hard to basically get out of Gaza and to just strike them now and then from the sky when they have good intelligence on things, do their best not to kill anybody. This is the new way of war which I have always said is kind of stupid. It's basically trying to kill the enemy without actually offending him. And if you're trying to kill the enemy without offending him, you're doing it wrong. Again, these people in countries like Yemen, their culture understands one thing, and that is the projection of power. They will align themselves with the strong horse. If they blow up a bunch of warehouses, if they blow up even some launch sites and things like that, again, this is out in the desert, and Yemen can say, ha, the United States in all its might did everything it could to destroy us with gigantic explosions, and they only managed to kill 5 people. That's a propaganda win for the Yemenis. That's a propaganda win for the Houthis. And it will, in some ways, serve to encourage them more than discourage them. They might be more careful about where they put their rockets in the future, but it certainly is not going to discourage them, and indeed it has not. So what we're seeing now is that the Yemenis are, they stood up and gave a speech, you know, the Yemeni or Houthi, this guy here. This guy stood up and gave a speech and said, hey, you know, it's the United States in its weakness struck at our people and did not manage to cause much damage, but our response will be overwhelming. And you know, his speech was all bluster, but this is how these people, this is how they speak. And again, he's not speaking to, he's not giving a speech to Joe Biden. He's not giving a speech to the West. He's giving a speech to his own people. And I'll just read for you what he said here. The American-British enemy, as part of its support for the continuation of the Israel crime in Gaza, launched a brutal aggression against the Republic of Yemen with 73 raids targeting the capital Sana'a and the governorates of Hodeidah, Taiz, Hinja, and Sada. The raids led to the deaths of 5 martyrs and the wounding of 6 others from our armed forces. The American-British enemy bears full responsibility for its criminal aggression against our Yemeni people and will not go unanswered and unpunished. The Yemeni armed forces will not hesitate to target the sources of the threat, along with all the aggressive targets in the land and at sea in defense of Yemen, its sovereignty and independence. So you see how he's framing this? This is now a fight for Yemeni independence from America. Like America wants to take over Yemen. Again, this place is a big dirt parking lot. I had one guy that sent me an email that was so upset that I said that. He said, I've been to Yemen and it's beautiful. I was like, dude, you need to get out more. I'm not saying there are no beautiful places in Yemen, but I'm saying that on the whole, Yemen is not a real garden spot where people want to go for spring break. You know what I mean? If you look up tourist things to do in Yemen, one of the biggest tourist things to do is to go see an ancient village made up of mud skyscrapers, 6 or 7 stories tall, out in the middle of the desert. That's what you get in Yemen. So there's not a lot that we really care about in Yemen. And the United States certainly does not want to take over Yemen in any way, shape, or form. We just want Yemen to quit bombing the heck out of people. And but this is being touted, or this is being couched in the language of aggression and oppression, and this brutal aggression will not deter Yemen from its supportive position with the wronged Palestinian people. The Yemeni armed forces confirm it is continuing to stop Israeli ships headed to the ports of occupied Palestine from navigation in the Arabian and Red Seas. So that was his speech. it certainly does not sound like we are deterring any kind of aggression out of Yemen. And this is what happens when you try to prosecute a war without actually offending anybody. War is supposed to be bloody. It's supposed to be painful. It's supposed to be quick, and it's supposed to be deadly. The more deadly, the more lethal, the more violent you make it at the beginning, the less time it takes to be finished. It's like my dad used to tell me, he said, look, I don't ever want to hear of you starting a fight with anybody, but if somebody starts one with you, you better finish it, and finish it as fast as you can. This is something that every boy on a playground learned when he was my age. But, you know, that overwhelming force is what it takes to deal with a bully. And if you aren't willing to do that, slapping him with your purse is probably not going to have the outcome that you hoped. And that's essentially what the United States is doing here. We're slapping Yemen with our purse. And unfortunately, I don't believe that this is going to lead to a cessation of hostilities. Now, on top of this, we saw just a couple days ago an Iranian ship now has, the Iranian military, the IRGC, has taken over an oil tanker out in the, I think in the Indian Ocean. So now the Iranians are getting in on the act. So what are we going to do? Are we going to start bombing Iran as well? And I think that's the reason that they did that. They did it, from what I read, they took over a ship that was actually a part of the Ghost Fleet that helps to transport oil from Iran and get it out to the world. It's a very fascinating story how Iran, even though it's under sanctions, so it shouldn't be able to export any oil, it manages to use these ghost ships, these ships that are basically blacklisted. They're not allowed to port anywhere except, like, you know, Iran. They go to Iran, they take on oil, and they go out in the middle of the ocean somewhere, and they do a ship-to-ship transfer of that oil to a ship that's not blacklisted. That ship, when they come in to make the transfer, they turn off their transponders so they can't be seen. And then a day or two later, the transponders come back on, but they're squawking a different frequency, and that the ship that picked up the oil is now flagged under a different flag. And they changed flags in the middle so as to throw off investigators. They then take that oil to a port in like China, Venezuela, someplace like that. And that's how their oil gets out to the world. Well, it seems kind of strange that Iran would be, you know, capturing a ship that's kind of part of their own sordid system for skirting around the sanctions. But what it seems to me is that what they're trying to do is make a show of capturing a ship on the high seas and daring the United States to do to them what they did to Yemen. You understand it's actually beneficial for these countries to get struck by the United States in the manner that they're being struck. It's kind of beneficial for them. We're not actually hurting the government of Yemen or the Houthi leadership by blowing up 16 different sites with some military hardware and stuff like that. We're not actually hurting them, because what we're doing is we're giving them cause to go to their people and say, you see, we're being oppressed. That's exactly what the United States is all about. They just want to take over our beautiful country. And it sort of becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. We're not going to make Yemen our friends. We know that. And bombing a couple of things in there is not going to deter them, I don't think, from continuing on the course that they're on. The only thing that would deter them would be to cripple their ability to make war, actually cripple it. And ask the Israelis how difficult that is in a small place like Gaza. And so if the United States wanted to truly cripple the Yemenis' ability to make war, it would take a whole lot more than hitting 16 targets in one night. What we're trying to do is send a message, but the message that the Yemenis are receiving is not the message that we're trying to send, because we don't speak their language. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so I want to look at the chat here and see what we got. I don't know where the chat window went. Let's see here. Oh, I must have closed it. Let's put that over here. If you have any questions, go ahead and send them now. Is there a legitimate government even left in Yemen anymore? Yes, there are. Stanley Barton says, is there a legitimate government left in Yemen anymore? Yes, there is, but they don't really control anything. The rebels took over Sana'a, the capital, and they are very well funded and equipped because they took over most of the military bases in Yemen. And so they went to the military leadership and said, hey, guess what? You get to join us and we'll kill your family. Or we'll kill your family. And so basically the entire military of Yemen was transferred over to the Houthis, and the government of Yemen only holds a few very small areas in the country that as far as I understand. And so, yeah, they're not going to be taking back their country anytime soon. They're basically, just they've been sidelined. Yes, Chris Mitchell is still reporting, Rebecca, for CBN, but he was home over Christmas, so he's back in Israel now. So basically we're getting in a fight with Yemen and Iran again. Yes, Aaron, that's exactly what we're doing. Hola, Nicaragua. Question, does this affect Saudi Arabia, that they may be attacked again by Yemen? Well, yes. And Saudi Arabia, as you probably know, has been fighting Yemen for 10 years or more. They've been in a war with Yemen. It's been kind of a low-grade conflict, but it's been a conflict. Surprisingly, the Saudis all but condemned what happened last night, what the United States did last night. I was kind of surprised by that. Maybe they condemned it because they felt like this will inflame the Yemenis and cause more attacks on Saudi Arabia. Or it could mean that Saudi Arabia is moving a little bit more toward the, toward the extremist Muslim side. I don't think is the case, because the new king or the new crown prince in Saudi Arabia is pretty progressive and is trying to change his country's image. He is trying to develop his country and make it more compatible with the West. We went to Saudi Arabia last year to climb Mount Sinai, and it was amazing. It was an amazing trip. If you want to see that, you can go over and do a search for the Mount Sinai on my YouTube channel, The Hot Zone with Chuck Holton. If you haven't subscribed over there, please do. If you haven't subscribed here, why not? Please subscribe here on YouTube, and then you hit that little notification bell and you can get notified when we're about to go live. I usually schedule the lives between half hour and an hour before we go live, so you'll have time to get on. Do you think Saudi and Oman could help the anti-Houthi coalition weed disappointment? I think, yes, they have been, actually. The Saudis have actually shot down some of the missiles that have been shot out of Yemen, probably because they flew over Saudi territory. But I think they're just sort of worried about an escalation in the region and how that could affect them. Do you think war is coming to America, Pamela? Depends on what kind of war you're talking about. I think we are at war in America. I think the war that we see in America is more of a civil conflict. No war is going to look like the last one. So when we think about war, we always think of what the last war looked like. And this is a very short-sighted thing, because the next war will never look like the last one did. And the war that I think we're experiencing right now is more of a war for the soul of our country. It's a war that is because we really have two countries living in America. We have two groups of people with mutually exclusive worldviews. By that, what I mean is that you have half the people in America that say there are some things that are right and there are some things that are wrong. Your opinion about those things doesn't change whether they are right or wrong. You can be wrong. You can be right. If you align yourself with truth, you can be in the right. The other half of America holds to a foundational worldview that says there is no such thing as right or wrong. It's more like flavors of ice cream, and you get to choose the flavor that suits you. This is when you hear people saying, speak your truth. Stand up for your truth. Well, you know what? There's truth and there's falsehood, but you don't get to choose your truth. You can align yourself with one or the other, but you can be wrong. And the idea that there's no such thing as wrong is actually self-contradictory. It actually commits suicide. It says it's wrong to say that anything is wrong. Well, you just said something was wrong, so you just contradicted yourself by saying it. If you say it's true that there is no truth, you just contradicted your own statement, and your statement commits suicide. But if you accept the concept that truth is like flavors of ice cream and not like insulin, life or death, then you can accept anything. Once you've accepted the idea that you can have your own truth, and that truth is not dependent on some objective outside of us, some objective being outside of us, like God, but you just make up your own truth, whatever you want. Once you've accepted that, then you can accept anything. You can accept that, men can have babies, and you can accept that you can change your gender. You can accept, things that up until 15 minutes ago, for all of human history, would have made you a laughingstock. And now we have half the United States who accepts those things as truth. Well, those things, those two worldviews cannot coexist. And we are seeing the consequences of that as we become more and more polarized, more and more violent, more and more angry, more and more bitter towards one another. One of the reasons that I like to live in Panama is that it's a very homogenous place. The things that people here fight about would just make Americans go like, here, prayer is still required in schools in Panama. Abortion is illegal. gay marriage is impossible because it's literally written into their constitution that marriage is between one man and one woman. So they'd have to literally change their constitution to allow gay marriage. So I don't know how I got off on that subject, but anyway, that I think that we are at war. I think that this is why we see the government trying to elect itself a new people by bringing in people from all over the planet and essentially taking out those who are, taking down those who are taxpayers. I read something yesterday that just boggles my mind, that in Massachusetts now the governor is trying to encourage people to, if you have an extra room in your house, we need you to take in illegal migrants because we don't even know where to house these people. So please take in illegal migrants. And you read the article, she's hinting at, we may have to make this mandatory. You may have to pay a tax if you have empty rooms in your house that aren't being filled. You may have to pay an extra tax to help support all these illegal migrants. Unbelievable. But go look it up. It's true. They're actually doing that. So I think war coming to America is a foregone conclusion. It's already here in some sense, but it's not going to look like the wars that we know. Okay. Let's see. Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, Sandy, for the... I don't know what these mean. I don't know what these... She put about 15 of these little emojis in there that look like hands going like this. I don't know what that means. But thank you anyway. I appreciate it. Let's see. Any other questions here? I'm just looking through the comments. Any idea on morale in Israel with civilians and the IDF? Well, the Israelis demobilized like 10 brigades, I think, of troops out of Gaza and sent them home because I think for one of two reasons, and we're not sure which is the reason yet. Number one, so that they could rest and refit and get ready to deploy to the north, where they may have to go in on the ground in Lebanon. And so behind the scenes, there may be a lot of machinations happening that are preparing Israel for a broader conflict to open up in the north. The other idea is that the Israeli economy has been shut down for like 3 months. And they really need people out there working and paying taxes. And so they sent a bunch of people home because part of the way that they can help win the fight is to actually go to work and pay taxes and make money. So they're starting to rotate people in. And the other reason I think they did that is to try to placate the United States by saying that we're reducing the intensity level of our operations in Gaza. And they are still going hard in Gaza, striking about 100 targets a day down there, but it was like 300. And so my question is not how does that affect the morale level of the soldiers or of the Israeli people. I want to know how that affects the morale of the hostages. To know that Israel was going pedal to the metal, all out to try to rescue the hostages, and now they've let off the gas, so to speak, and they have backed off so much that they sent 10 brigades home. If the hostages even know about that, which we don't know if they do, I can't imagine that makes them feel very good about their chances for getting out anytime soon. It's not uncommon when Palestinians take hostages for those hostages to be held for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And you can imagine how terrible those guys must feel when the pace of operations has decreased by 2/3 in Gaza. But that's what the United States has been pushing the Israelis to do. The Israelis are beholden to the United States to the extent that they do have to care what the United States thinks. And the government is stuck between a rock and a hard place because they've got to placate their people who want to finish this and try to placate the United States and the world body. So let's go ahead and talk about this International Criminal Court hearing in The Hague against Israel that was brought by South Africa. South Africa, if you don't know much about South Africa is one of the most repressive regimes on the planet, especially against white people. They have had a systematic and intentional policy of killing off the white people in their country for a decade or more. They will have huge rallies in football stadiums, and the president of South Africa will get up on stage and sing a chant, "Kill the Boer, kill the poor, kill the white man." The Boers are the Danish descendants of, Dutch descendants of, that are white people that live in South Africa. They have gone through the military in South Africa and have systematically removed anybody that was white. They've even gone so far as to go back in history and take the storied units of the South African military that fought for their independence, that fought to protect South Africa against the communists, et cetera, et cetera. But they were all staffed by white people, and they have deleted those records from their history, trying to rewrite history, and gotten rid of those designations. It'd be like the U.S. going back and saying, we're going to completely erase the existence of the 82nd Airborne in our country because they did something we saw as racist sometime in the past. I've talked to some of the veterans, white veterans of the military that live in South Africa, and it is so disheartening for them to see what's happening to the country that they fought for. It is unbelievably dangerous to be a white person in South Africa, and probably at least as dangerous to be a black person in South Africa because the crime rate is so high. There are a ton of migrants that are coming into South Africa from Zimbabwe and other places around Africa that are actually poorer than South Africa. And there are social welfare programs that have been put in place by the current government that will pay like $75 a month to a single mother that's an illegal immigrant who's come across into South Africa. And believe it or not, $75 a month is enough for them to live on. And that's a whole lot more than they could earn living in Zimbabwe or someplace. And so they're getting flooded by all these migrants, and the migrants are just going in and are taking up residence on the farms that they find around South Africa, especially farms that are owned by white people. There have been many, many farms that have been taken over, and they just build little shanty towns all over on these people's farms, and they can't really get rid of them. The government won't help them. But if they take up residence on the farm of a black person, they have a group of people called the Red Ants that the black guy, the black farmer can call. And the Red Ants are a kind of like a private military contractor that they can contract out. They will come in on flatbed trucks with these guys in red jumpsuits, and they will rampage through these shanty towns on a black farmer's farm and will just absolutely destroy the place and kill people, just terrorize everybody and drive them off of that guy's land. If it's a white farmer, though, can't do it. He's got to hire at his own expense another kind of private military contractor firm to come in and to try to just make it so uncomfortable for the people on his farm that they decide to leave. But the white farmer murders in South Africa are off the charts. If you're a farmer out there, you've got very little protection. They've been cracking down on your ability to protect yourself, cracking down on your ability to arm yourself. And certainly if you shoot some robbers that come into your house, there's a good chance that you're going to be the one who goes to jail. As a matter of fact, I made a story about it that you should see on my YouTube channel. If you go over to if you go over to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton, the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton on YouTube, and you do a search for South Africa, episode 185 is an episode I did, an interview I did with the wife of a white South African farmer. They were in their home one night watching a movie with their two girls, and some guys came into their house and stood the husband up and shot him in the head right in front of the wife and the daughters. Tried to shoot the daughters, missed. By some miracle, they didn't take the wife and the daughters and rape them. But her story is horrific, and everybody should go hear it. Because if you want to know what kind of government South Africa is, just go watch this piece on the Hot Zone with this woman right here. Go watch this piece, and I tell you what, the government is encouraging what happened to her. Encouraging it. So for the South African government to bring charges of genocide against Israel is laughable on its face. Not just because of the hypocrisy involved, but because what they're essentially saying is that countries don't have the right to defend themselves. They seem to have skipped over the whole part about what happened on October 7th. And not only that, the South African government has met with Hamas leadership since October 7th. So they obviously support Hamas, and Hamas, being a non-state actor, does not have the ability to bring charges in the International Court of Justice. So South Africa did their dirty work for them. And I think this is kind of a show trial. Israel is, if I was Israel, I wouldn't even bother I wouldn't even legitimize the court with a response from that. I would just completely ignore it. But they've decided to send their lawyers and to try to defend themselves in the international court. It doesn't matter what verdict the court comes down with. It doesn't have any teeth. They can't enforce anything, but it could make it more likely that Israel would end up with an arms embargo or sanctions or something like that. Arms embargo is probably more likely than sanctions at this point, meaning that the United States and others would say, we're not going to sell Israel any more arms because we don't like what they're doing in Gaza. So far, the United States has chosen not to do that, but this is kind of a big deal that this is coming actually at so quickly. The fact that it's happening this quickly shows that the disposition of the international court, I think. It shows that they're actually probably supportive of Hamas in this thing. Okay. Let's see here. What other questions we got? Let's see. Folks, you can also follow my reporting if you go to chuckholton.com. Chuckholton.com will take you over to Locals, and you can subscribe over there to follow all the reporting I do. And I also put a lot of the source material up there that I end up talking about on these lives. So, if I find an interesting video from, that pertains to what we're talking about, I'll go post it over there so you can go over there and watch the videos that I'm talking about. I'm experimenting with this idea here because if I actually show the video, what happens is YouTube will demonetize the video for us, and we don't want that to happen. So I think Connie is moderating as well as the team at CBN. Let's see here. In South Africa, the pizza man arrives at your house before the police. That's true in the United States in many places as well. Do you think they tunnels like Gaza? Robert, I'm sorry, don't understand your question. Let's see. Oh, those are praying hands? Okay. Thank you for that. I always wondered what those, I thought maybe it was touchdown, touchdown. How involved is Angela Davis in the anti-white stuff? I don't know who Angela Davis is, so I can't answer that question. So Bonolo, somebody says, what you're saying about South Africa is totally untrue. Well, Bonolo, I went to South Africa and I saw it with my own eyes. And I spent a couple weeks there and traveled around the country and actually saw the red ants coming in and pushing people off black farmers' lands. I rode along with the private military contractors who were hired by white farmers to try to keep people off of their land, and saw how constrained they were and what they weren't allowed to do. They're not allowed to carry real weapons. They can use paintball guns, but that's about it. So maybe you have been impacted by the propaganda of your own government, and that is not your fault. But if you're hearing things you've never heard before, I'm not making this stuff up. I went to South Africa. I interviewed the people. Go watch this interview here and tell me if you think this lady's lying, okay? And we can talk about it, okay? Maybe I'll do a whole live on just what's happening in South Africa. Let's see here. Okay, well, let's see. We've been going for, so we got 3,800 people online and only 1,700 likes. So would you please go and hit the like button? That helps a lot. How close are we to World War III in your opinion? Well, Isaac, like I said, World War III is not going to look like World War II. It's going to be much more distributed. It's going to be cyber in many cases. It's going to be prosecuted with drones and air power, missiles and drones, much more than it already is. But if you look around the world today and you look at the wars that we see, so far they're all proxy wars. The war that we see in Ukraine is a proxy war between Russia and the West. The war that we see in Israel is a proxy war between radical Islamic terrorists and the West. Israel is the battleground, but it's much bigger than a war against the Israelis. And I would say that we will know we're in World War III when you have the primary players getting involved in war against each other. Primary players being Russia, China, Iran, the United States, and NATO. When any of those primary players gets directly involved with one another, that's World War III for you right there. So that's what I think about that. I have a question. The attack Israel at the music festival, did they fly in on drones? No, they flew in on paragliders. You know, those, it's like a go-kart with a big fan on the back and a parachute. And they flew in on those. And they broke through the fence and came in with trucks and motorcycles as well. So it wasn't just on those things. How likely of a terrorist attack on U.S. soil do you think, and timing of? Another terrorist attack on U.S. soil is a matter of, it's a matter of when it happens, not if it happens. We will have more terror attacks on U.S. soil, but it probably, just depends on how good we are at finding them and stopping them ahead of time. Let's see. Should at least 100 million subscribers. That'd be great. We'll take it. God bless you, Chuck. Do you think, Pam says, do you think there are Hamas tunnels under Israel's territory? There have been some some Israelis, thank you, dear, who have been afraid of that, worried about that. They have said that they live near the West Bank. And they have said that they have heard what sounds like digging noises underneath their homes. And so they are concerned that they are digging tunnels from Judea and Samaria into the rest of Israel. The Israelis have some cutting-edge technology to find those tunnels. That was a bigger problem in the past. That was a big problem coming out of Gaza into Israel before. And they kind of put a stop to it because they came up with these various different methods of finding those tunnels and closing them off. They have these, I've seen them, they're like a Merkava tank without a turret on it, and it's got a big, like a 15-foot or longer kind of rail on the front with these very long shafts, like drill bits, that it drives forward where they suspect a tunnel of being, and it drills into the ground and goes down pretty deep. And then if they find a tunnel in there, they just pump concrete into the tunnel and fill it full of concrete. They have, ground penetrating radars, and the fence that they put in up there in Gaza was supposed to actually, put a stop to that. But of course, and it may have put a stop, it just made it too costly and, crazy expensive for them to build tunnels that came from Gaza into, into Israel. But they don't have a wall like that in Judea and Samaria. They don't have a wall like that in places that, they can't have a wall like that in every place. And so because of that, they are worried about that being a problem for sure. So I'm trying to plug in my microphone here. So yeah, it's an issue. Without a doubt, it's an issue. And the problem is they can't find, in most places, they're not going to be able to find those things until it's too late. All right, so Gaza doesn't seem to be big enough to have hundreds of miles of tunnels. I know, right? They say that they brought in enough concrete in Gaza to build 6 Burj Al Arab buildings. That's the tallest building in the world, the one in Dubai. To build 6 of those. And instead, this concrete all went underground to make tunnels. So, yeah, that's bad. Okay, so how does Iran taking over the tanker change the situation? Well, Carol, I think that Iran taking over that tanker really just is Iran sort of daring the United States to get involved directly. Like I said, we want World War III. The U.S. gets involved directly against Iran, and we've got most likely World War III. We've struck Iran before, but in the distant past. It's been decades since we struck Iran. Israel, on the other hand, if Israel struck Iran, that would be more likely. If we wanted Iran to be struck, we'd probably get Israel to do it because it would be less of an escalation for them to do it. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see. Israel is wrong and we're backing them, so we, the USA, is wrong. Well, Cynthia, you can find the video out there of much of the October 7th attacks. Not the full, very, very graphic video that they showed to us journalists, but you can find video that's graphic enough out there. And I would just say, go ask that 20-year-old to watch that video and then tell you that what those guys did was right. Because they were going around to 20-year-old girls and executing them point blank. They were not striking military targets. They were killing civilians and doing much worse than killing them, actually. And if she refuses, well, then, you know, you can't reason with somebody that's being unreasonable. How will this affect our RRSP investments? Well, as far as investments go, I think it could make the price of oil go up, which makes the price of everything go up. Have I heard from High Oval? Yeah, I've heard from them. I keep track of those guys. They're doing all right up there. Do you think they'll ever release a video? No, I don't. It's too graphic. It's too graphic. It'll probably leak somehow, but it's so graphic. It's just yeah. I don't think that Israel will release it on purpose. Let's see. What's coming next, in my opinion? Well, I don't. What's coming next for me? I am going to do some reporting from the Darien Gap next week for a couple days, and then I've got to make a quick trip to New York, so I'll probably do some reporting there on the sentiments there, and then I'm going to make a trip to Guyana and go report on the possible war between Venezuela and Guyana. A very fascinating story. As I've been looking into that, I've been just amazed. That is a very interesting story. And so you're going to want to watch those. So I'll spend a couple days in Guyana, and then we'll see what happens next. What will come next globally? Man, it's anybody's guess. Am I going to the Darien with Oscar Blue? No. We were going to go last week, and Oscar was going to come along, and that fell through. And so we didn't get to go together, Oscar and I. Okay, well, let's see. How long have we been going here? Yeah, we've been going just an hour. So great. Let's pray, shall we? Folks, if you didn't get to see the videos that I made from Cartagena, Colombia, go look at them on my YouTube channel, The Hot Zone with Chuck Holton. It'll blow your mind. We ran across a woman who was demon possessed. And I've been a Christian all my life, but I wasn't really that kind of Christian, you know, the jump up and down and speaking in tongues and, you know, that kind of stuff. I was a staunch Baptist. And so I believe in demons. I believe in demon possession. I've seen it a couple times in my life traveling around the world. But I was confronted with a woman over in Cartagena. Right as soon, we were just talking about, somebody had made the case, said, why are you helping people in Colombia? You should be helping people in the United States. And I was kind of ranting about, how about you help the people where you are? And I'll help the people where I am. You know, are you saying that the people in Colombia are not worthy of help? Are you saying that Americans are better than everybody else? We should only help Americans? If I'm in Colombia and I'm confronted with somebody that needs help, I'm going to help them. And if you're in the United States and you're confronted with somebody that needs help, you should help them too. And it's not an either or thing. It doesn't have to be. Well, as soon as I finished talking about that, there was a woman literally in the path, in the sidewalk, sitting on the ground in the sidewalk. She's missing a leg. Her hand was all messed up. And she was kind of babbling incoherently. And so we knelt and talked to her for a minute. And then I asked her if I could pray for her. And when I went to pray for her, as soon as I said Jesus, her pupils went black as coal. And she went, "Rah!" and just like started speaking in a different voice and lashed out and struck me and tried to hit my wife, and just was like, the look on her face. If you ever want to see what somebody looks like when they're demon possessed, go watch that video. And I didn't know what to do, so I just prayed in the name of Jesus, like people have told me to do, like my parents told me to do. Just cast out the demon in the name of Jesus. And so I did that. And I know that God is able. I'm certainly not, my strength is not strong enough to cast out any demons, but Christ working through me can do all things, right? So I just gave it a try. And she was like, she spoke to me twice in English. She doesn't speak English, but the demon spoke to me in English and was like, "Get up, get away." And I was like, whoa. And so I prayed for her. And after a moment, it was like she just went, and just exhaled and relaxed. And then she started speaking to me in Spanish, and she started making sense. And then she started talking to my wife, and it was like the demon just left. It was truly mind-blowing, folks, what happened. So go watch it if you're interested in stuff like that. I was as surprised as anybody. But anyway, let's pray, and then we'll be done. All right, Lord, we just come to you today acknowledging the fact that in our own selves, we are not capable of anything. We can't bring peace in this world. We can't cast out demons. We can't do those things in our own strength. But thank you, Lord, that you've promised to give us your strength. And you've promised to work through us and use us as your hands and feet. I just pray that we would be willing to be used by you as your hands and feet. And I pray that you would help bolster my faith and my unbelief, and make me stronger in my faith as I go along. We thank you for the assurance that we have that you're in control, even when we see the incredible things happening around the world, the tragedies and the wars and the rumors of wars and the disasters just seem like they're everywhere, and we feel so helpless to do anything about it. I pray, Lord, that you would give us the assurance that you are doing something about it, that you are sovereign over all of those things, and that we can focus on just trying to redeem the world that you put in front of us, trying to love the people that you put in front of us, no matter where we are. And help us to see the people around us with your eyes. I pray for the soldiers who are still fighting in Gaza, and I pray that you would protect them and that you would guide them and give them discernment. Help them to see traps that are laid for them, and help Hamas to fall into its own traps, Lord. I pray that they would give up their hostages and that this would be over. I pray that you would bolster and strengthen and encourage those hostages. You would give them something to hope for, Father, and that they would not lose hope, that they would cry out to you and they would find you even in the depths of the earth. Lord, I pray that this escalation in Yemen would not get worse, and that the Yemenis, the Houthis, would back off and would stop trying to destroy the work of other men's hands. Start trying to be a force for good in the world instead of a force for evil. And Lord, I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, folks, thank you very much for watching. God bless you all. And we'll see you again next time when something happens. I probably will be going live on my own channel today too, a little later on this afternoon. So if you want to watch, that's The Hot Zone with Chuck Holton. We'll see you.